There is a voice in your head that speaks with confidence. It sounds like you, it uses your tone. It knows your history, it remembers every moment you hesitated, every time you almost acted and didn't. And because it sounds so familiar, you trust it. You don't question it, you don't challenge it, you assume it is you. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That voice is not you. It didn't come from intelligence, it didn't come from intuition, and it definitely didn't come from wisdom, it came from somewhere else. And as long as you don't recognize that, it will quietly decide how much you earn, how far you go, and how safe your life stays. There is a moment you know very well. You're about to do something small as but meaningful. You open the message you've been rewriting for days. You read it again. You fix one sentence, then another. Your finger hovers over send, or you look at the price you've been charging. You already know it's too low. You already feel it in your body, or you stare at an idea that has been almost ready for weeks, and right before you move, something happens. Not panic, not fear, not drama, just a subtle tightening inside, a pause, a sense that waiting might be smarter. Nothing loud interrupts you, no alarm goes off, you just don't move. And later, when you explain it to yourself, it sounds reasonable. You were being careful, you were thinking it through. You were waiting for the right moment, and that's why this voice is dangerous, because it doesn't sound emotional, it sounds intelligent. Most people don't realize this voice has been making decisions for them for years. Quietly, consistently, effectively, they don't feel broken, they don't wake up thinking something is wrong. They function, they work, they show up, they survive. From the outside, life looks fine, but inside there is constant commentary. A private narrator that never shuts off, explaining why today isn't the day, why this step is risky, why someone else can do it, but not you, why staying where you are a little longer makes sense. And the dangerous part is this: the voice doesn't feel negative, it feels responsible, it feels like maturity, it feels like experience, it feels grounded, so people trust it. They call it logic. They call it realism, they call it being smart, but psychologically it is none of those. This voice was never designed to help you win. It was not born with you, it was installed. Early in life, your nervous system learned a simple rule: belonging equals safety. Before ambition, before confidence, before success, belonging came first. Your system learned to observe carefully what behavior gets approval, what behavior creates tension, what reactions are welcome, what reactions are too much, which parts of you are accepted, which parts should be softened, hidden, delayed, not because anyone planned this, but because your nervous system is built to protect you. Over time, it created an internal regulator. A system that constantly asks one question: will this cost me safety? Not fulfillment, not growth, not potential, safety. That regulator slowly became a voice that interrupts you right before risk. And here's the key thing most people never understand. This voice does not care about your potential. It cares about predictability. A predictable life feels safe to the nervous system, even if it feels empty to you. That's why the voice doesn't appear when you fail, it appears when you're about to grow. Right before raising standards, right before changing direction, right before being seen, right before choosing differently than before, because growth creates uncertainty. And uncertainty activates the same system that once protected you from emotional danger. So the voice doesn't shout, it whispers. It slows you down just enough to keep everything familiar. Here's something important to notice. The voice never tells you to quit. It never says give up. It simply encourages delay. More thinking, more preparation, more learning, more waiting. From the outside, this looks responsible. From the inside, it feels exhausting, and over time, it becomes an identity. I'm the kind of person who thinks deeply. I don't rush into things. I'm careful. But underneath that story is something simpler. Avoidance wearing a smart costume. Many people believe they are waiting for clarity. They say, I'll act when it feels clear. I just need to be more certain. I want to be confident first. But clarity does not come first. Psychologically, clarity is a reward, not a requirement. The voice promises something impossible. It says, once the fear disappears, then you'll move. But the fear is created by the same system that demands certainty, so people enter a loop. They think instead of act, they prepare instead of test, they learn instead of offer, they plan instead of decide. And years pass quietly. Now pause for a moment. Notice something. Right now there is no voice speaking, no commentary, no advice, just awareness, and that's important. Because the voice loses its power the moment it stops being obeyed automatically. High performers don't eliminate this voice. They don't fight it. They don't silence it. They reclassify it. They understand something subtle but powerful. This voice is not telling the truth. It is signaling unfamiliar territory. So when it says be careful, they hear, you are stepping into uncertainty, not you are making a mistake. That shift changes everything. The real cost of listening to this voice is not failure. It's not collapse. It's not disaster. It's smaller decisions. Choosing the safer option, lowering standards quietly, waiting one more year, delaying the uncomfortable move. Over time, those decisions compound, not into regret you can name, but into a quiet frustration you can't explain. A sense that life never fully opened, and that something holding you back was never a lack of ability. It was obedience. So the next time this voice appears, don't fight it, don't argue with it, don't try to silence it, just pause and ask one question. Is this voice protecting my comfort or expanding my life? That question creates distance. Distance creates choice, and choice is where freedom actually begins. Because the voice was never the enemy. Believing it was you was. If you stayed until this moment, you're not here by accident. It means your mind is already learning to slow down, to observe, to separate automatic patterns from real choice. And this is how real change begins. Not with motivation, not with pressure, not with forcing yourself, but with awareness. Because different actions create different moments. And different moments create a different life. Subscribe, not for noise, not for shortcuts, but for depth.